This is one of the 4 or 5 most significant lectures that we have across the university each and every year. And it's one of the 2 great lectures that we have in the College of Business, the Dunham College of Business. So you've come tonight to a very special program. Those that you will hear are in a long line of outstanding speakers. Tonight, as you can see, we're going to have a panel discussion, so I'm really confident that you're going to enjoy that. It should be fun. These 3 young businessmen know one another, and so I think you'll really enjoy hearing from them. Welcome. If you're a visitor to the campus, welcome to HBU. We're really glad you're here. We hope you've had the opportunity or will soon take the opportunity to look around the campus. There's a lot going on, everything from our new development out on 59 and Fondren to just the beauty of the landscaping all across the campus, and a record enrolled class, a record total enrollment, a record graduate school class this last year, and Division I football. So all those things are going on here at HBU, and we just have a lot of fun. We are going to have the university's gala. We have a biennial gala, and it will take place November the 1st. So I hope you may even have the opportunity to be there. So it's a big moment in the life of the university, and we're very encouraged. We also, it's a historic moment in the life of our university. The 2nd president of the university, Dr. Doug Hodo, passed away just yesterday, and we remember his family in our prayers. You can see his picture out here just outside in the McNair Great Hall, just outside this Beeland Chapel, and we give God thanks for his life and the influence that he and Sadie Hodo have had in the life of HBU. Welcome. We are really glad you're here. I want to take just a moment to introduce our panelists, and then I'm going to call upon Dean Weeks to come and lead us in prayer. But let me just introduce briefly our panelists for the evening. Tad Tellefson is here. Tad is president of the Tellefson Corporation, and it's just really amazing to have him here. You're going to hear me say a lot of similar things about each of these. Each one of these panelists represents a family-owned, family-operated, managed business, and they're all in the 4th generation. Each of these businesses is at least 100 years old, these family businesses. So it's a great tradition that they represent. So Tad is president of the Tellefson Corporation. Tad, along with his colleagues and fellow panelists, is very involved in the life of Houston. His entire family is. He is involved obviously in for-profit boards and particularly also in service nonprofit boards across the city. He and his family have been very involved in the Greater Houston YMCA. He's on the board of directors there. The Tellefson Corporation has built buildings. It's construction, pre-construction services, and construction services firm. They've built facilities across many different avenues of business and enterprise across the city, and really not just Houston, but around the world. And they've also built buildings and done construction for us here on the HBU campus. Tad is a member of the HBU Board of Trustees, and so anyway, welcome to you. Ernie Cockerel. Ernie comes also from a great Houston family. They are involved all across the city in different ways. Ernie is currently the executive managing director of Pinto Realty. They're involved in real estate development, whether it's raw land or commercial real estate. Ernie serves on numerous boards, both for-profit and nonprofit, across the city. Of course, he's involved with the Cockerel Family Fund, the Cockerel Foundation. They are very philanthropic and generous. He's involved with the Methodist Hospital Research Institute, the Houston Museum of Natural Science, on the board of Amegy Bank, and is also a board member of the Cockerel Investment Partners. So again, one of the exciting things is to have these family businesses and to see these leaders who are involved in different kinds of businesses, and yet they have a lot in common, which you'll hear about. And then Matt Morris. I want to introduce Matt Morris to you. I should have said that Tad is married to Jennifer, and Ernie is married to Stephanie. And Matt is married to Melissa. And let's see, I think Ernie and his wife have 2 children. You all have 3, and you all have four boys. So these are family men as well. But Matt is also a trustee here at HBU. He is an SMU business grad, a University of Texas MBA grad. Also very involved across the city in for-profit and nonprofit activities. He's the Chief Executive Officer for Stewart Information Services. This is a New York Stock Exchange publicly traded company. And if you've ever done anything with real estate, or you will one day if you haven't already, and you've probably been involved with Stewart Title Company, and that is the company that Matt, as a 4th generation family member, continues to be a part of. And so it's one of the great companies of the world. So we welcome these 3 panelists. We're grateful that they can be here. I want us to begin with prayer. Dean Michael Weeks will lead us in prayer, and then you'll hear more about the Prince Chavanne lecture, and then we'll start our panel discussion. Welcome. Thanks, Dean.
Thank you, Dr. Sloan. It's great to see all the students and all of our guests here tonight. Would you join me in prayer tonight, please? Lord, we come to you with praise and thanksgiving tonight. We praise you for your majesty and glory. We thank you for all that is represented here tonight. We thank you for the generosity of the Chavanne family that has made this event possible. We also thank you for the time that these men are giving of us to share their experiences and their lives of faith with us tonight. We lift up the Hodo family tonight in their time of grief. We know that your presence will be felt among them, and we lift them up this evening. We want to ask for your giving of wisdom tonight. We know that you give wisdom freely to all who ask. We pray that you would spread that tonight, and that our students and our audience might learn from these experiences and know that you are with us tonight. In Christ's name we pray. Amen. And now, Dr. Rusty Brooks, our Prince Chavanne Chair of Christian Business Ethics, will come and talk about the lecture. Thank you.
Well, welcome to all of you for attending our Prince Chavanne Christian Business Ethics lecture. Several of you asked me, where's the prince? Well, when the Chavanne family got together, they took the last names of their 2 families, and that's where it came from. And Hazel and Harry Chavanne, back in the early 1980s, decided that one thing that really wasn't being done, especially in schools of business around the state of Texas, was to talk about ethics, not only ethics, but Christian business ethics. And so in 1986, we had our first Prince Chavanne Christian business ethics speaker. And for a number of years, academics were used, and ethicists, that's a hard word for me to say, ethicists were used to give some discussion to this. But we ran out of ethicists. So eventually we moved forwards into having business people begin to give not only testimonies about ethics, but also about their walks in faith. Over the years, in fact, this is the 30th anniversary of the Prince Chavanne Chair. Over the years, we've had several professors who have filled the role that I fill tonight. Dr. Robert Driver was the first of our chairs, and he was a finance person. Dr. Sherry Westcott was our second. She was an accountant. They're both retired. And it's been my pleasure to serve in this capacity since the year 2000. So I've been doing this for some time. I also want to recognize the family that's here with us tonight. Claire Turner is down in the front, and with her is one of her son-in-laws, and Jason Swigert is a pastor at the Cypress branch of First Baptist Church. And in fact, Telespin Corporation is doing some building for them, I think, sometime soon. So we have some connections there. And also sitting next to Claire Turner is our First Lady of the University, Sue Sloan. And she is joining us tonight, and then several other people that have helped with this. This particular presentation, this is the first panel that we've ever had to be able to do this. And we've had speakers in the past from business and industry. Dan Cathy with Chick-fil-A spoke 1 year for us. Steve Green with Hobby Lobby, another year. Last year, Archie Dunham, that our college is named after, was here. And several others that you would recognize at some of the places, where that they have worked have done these speeches for us. But the unique thing about this particular presentation is the Chavanne family wanted something that was just for students. And so if you look around this room, the suits are far and few between, and there are a lot of students here. That was the purpose and the desire of the family, was to be able to bring this message to students. And so those of you that have come this evening, I hope you will enjoy your experience and come away with a good feeling about business ethics, and also be able to understand how that the men on the stage in our panel feel about this, and as they go through some of the questions to stimulate response. At the end, if we have some time, we'll do a little bit of Q&A so you can get your questions in. So thank you very much, President Sloan. I'll turn it over to you.
Welcoming these panelists and saying thank you. Thank you, Rusty. And Claire Turner, we again want to thank you so much for what you mean to the university. Ms. Turner served on the HBU Board of Trustees, and of course her family, Harry and Hazel Chavanne, have meant a great deal to HBU now for many years. And it's, I think all of us, sometimes we walk into a situation and perhaps don't realize or don't stop to reflect upon the lengthy history that's made it possible for each of us to be where we are. And, of course, I can't help but think of Harry and Hazel Chavanne and what they've meant to so many over such a long period of time. And, of course, I think of Dr. Doug Hodo and his influence in the life of HBU, which really, Tad and Ernie and Matt is in some ways the kind of the first thing I want us to talk about, because you all are fourth generation, at least, businesses. You represent those kinds of businesses. And Tad, your family's business started in 1909. Yes. So that's, I think, 107 years, if I can do my math quickly enough. So that's, it's pretty amazing. But I'd like all of you, and I won't necessarily ask each of you to respond to every question, but I would like each of you to respond to this. That is, it's so unusual to have a multi-generation business. I saw some statistics that indicate that a family owned and operated businesses, only about 30% survived to the second generation, only about 15% to the third generation, 3%, I think I got those numbers right. Anyway, he goes 30%, 15%, 3%. And here you all are, fourth generation businesses. At least, I mean, Ernie, your family, only 100 years. So you all are the baby. We're the babies. Yeah, amazing. 100 years, 100 plus years for all of you. But, talk about that a little bit, about your business. But in the process of it, I mean, how did you defy the odds? Why do you think your family businesses have survived and flourished the way they have?
I think you all agree. We've all been very blessed. Before I get into that, I want to thank you, Dr. Sloan, Dr. Brooks, and Ms. Turner. Thank you for having us here. This is a real special opportunity, and it's special to me because, yes, I get to talk about my faith and our business, but I'm up here with people who are not strangers to me. These are very good friends of mine, and so we haven't done something like this together. I think it's going to be very meaningful for us. Now, it's a little weird to be sitting in a panel with a moderator because I've been watching the debates religiously. Okay, so I hope there's not going to be any arguments.
I'm going to stand over the back of you here.
Stand over the back of me. No arguments over hot mics or emails. Promise?
All right. All right.
So
Hey, we are recording this, so the mics are always hot, right?
So how did we get started? Our company was started in 1909 by my great-grandfather. He was a Norwegian immigrant who left his home in Tvedestrand, Norway after the 7th grade. Can you all imagine your parents allowing you, he did it with his parents' permission, his mother's permission, his father was dead, allowing you to leave home for good at age 14. He traveled around the world a few times as a cabin boy on a sailing ship. And as many young people of that time who wanted to come to America and for a better life, he ended up on Ellis Island. And he was unable to find work in the New York area. So he saw an ad that said carpenters needed at the Panama Canal. So he hightailed it to Panama and worked there for 3 years as a carpenter. He almost died of malaria. He had remembered in his 7th grade geography class that Texas was the new frontier. And so when he recovered from malaria, he made his way to Houston as quickly as he could. And that's where he started our business. He completed his first project in 1909, and it was a home. It was a rather stately home at the time, and it is on Mount Vernon Street over there in Montrose. It still exists. It's still in use today. In fact, the University of St. Thomas owns the house, and that's where their history department is. And they tell me its life is short because it's just too expensive for them to keep up, and they're outgrowing it, so that building will be torn down in the not-too-distant future, which is sad. What I think is unique about a company is its culture. And certainly I feel our culture is unique, and my great-grandfather established our culture over 100 years ago. And that's a culture where it's not about us. It's a culture where we put others first. And we try real hard in everything we do with our employees, with our customers, with our suppliers, is to put them first. We have a little saying around the office, the customer is the next person in line. So you darn sure better have a service mindset, because that customer is the next person in line. There's always somebody needing something from you. In addition, I think that a culture, a unique culture, is a strategic differentiator, okay? A unique culture will build loyalty with your employees, your customers, and that's something that cannot be copied. Real important. It can't be copied. And we're always trying to make ourselves stand out amongst our competitors.
Good, thank you. Now, building culture then, that's a key component. So, Ernie, respond to the same thing.
Absolutely. Well, again, I echo what Tad said. Thank you all, and thank you all for letting us be here. As Tad said, we've known each other for a long time. As a group, I've actually known Tad since we were about that tall. His grandfather, my grandfather, were friends. My dad and his dad are still friends, and here Tad and I are sitting on a stage together. So it's rewarding for me to be able to share something like this with a friend that's a lifelong friend. Business, not getting into all of the inner workings of what we do today, but we started in the turn of the century, last century, as a oil and gas company. My great-grandfather was a wildcatter. His car was also his office. He drove around on a Model T. And it was a couple of years ago, I actually found his office. It was in a trunk. And we actually broke into it after all these years and found all his work papers and everything else. It was a ton of history and of what he did. But what he did is oil and gas, and he had great leadership. He unfortunately died at a very young age and passed his company on to his son, his only son, and with that came leadership. He also, like his dad, passed away at an early age, and it was really born upon my dad when he took over the company at 26 years old. Was the third largest independent E&P producer in the Gulf Coast at 26 years old. And how he got around that was the leadership that was taught to him, what Tad was talking about, the culture, and the people, the investors, the employees. And ultimately what came down to it is if you treat your investors, your employees, your family, everybody with dignity, and give them the power to make decisions, you're going to have a successful organization. We have built this culture as well. We have a set of cards that we give to every employee as they come, and it's a simple little fold out, and it has our mission statement, our vision statement. This gets plastered on every single TV we have in our office, and it is scrolling. So as employees are walking through the kitchen, they see what our family's mission statement is and what our value statement is. And then with that comes a series of what our values are. It goes into care, trust, respect, honesty, reputation and heritage, excellence, innovation, goals. Goals being very important here. And then one that's kind of fun that we have here is becoming a legend. Becoming a legend, I'll read you the definition. We believe that striving to exceed good performance in favor of performing at a level of the greats creates the uncommon attitude, a vision from which legendary companies are made. And so we strive for those values and those goals and those mission statements, and we tell it to them, our employees and our families as well, daily. But the biggest component of what we have, and as a family, we have what's called a family constitution, and we all sign it when we turn 14 years of age. And part of that is the top of it is we are a Christ-centric family, and then we go down through the different values. So leadership and Christ-centric, and then creating the dignity for the people that are working with us and for us is what has created the legacy for where we are now. And now we got fifth generation on the ground. So.
Well, thank you. Matt, please.
Absolutely. Well, Stewart titles, I guess the old one in the bunch. 1893, we trace our roots back to Galveston, William H. Stewart, and the Stewart name is surrounding Galveston after the flood in 1900, moved many businesses to Houston along the way, and long story short, the Morrises married in to the Stewarts, and along the way, and the company went public in the early 70s. And I think a lot of what has been discussed already on culture and on trust and on establishing the core values from an early on standpoint are what gives us our reputation today. And it really relies on integrity and trust. We often play off the words, Stewart title and steward. As an industry and as a company, we provide peace of mind, right? We protect property rights. And so the idea of integrity and trust is embedded in everything we do as a company. And I think as a family, thinking of this as fourth generation, I think what's instilled privately, and I think in the family aspect of the business, is understanding that this is an asset given by the grace of God for the glory of God. And I think that has embedded, my understanding of the opportunity, that's been given, right, is to steward this asset at the end of the day. And that not only is the financial, business itself, but, we have close to 7,000, employees and hundreds of offices literally around the world, right? And it's an amazing opportunity, right, to be able to understand the blessings that we've been given, but also to understand that our identity is in Christ, right? And what freedom we have, right, to be given tools, right, that we glorify God by representing Him well, right, as we lead business and provide jobs and do great things, but hopefully all for the glory of God.
Thank you. Well, thank all of you for those responses, because these beginning responses have focused on sort of the core, and they've talked about a family and building a culture and relating to people with integrity and Christ-centeredness. I want to ask you at least one more question about those, about the core, and then I want to have another question or two about, sort of you might say diversification or how you've changed, not in terms of your core, but maybe how your businesses might have changed. But first, another question about core. When I remember my family, my parents, I can remember key moments. I didn't know at the time that they were key, but I can now think back as an adult and remember some key moments where something really stayed with me about their faith, about their integrity. I'll just throw it open and just whoever wants to, or all of you or one of you or two of you, do you have any, sort of great memories or an outstanding memory of someone in your family, parent, grandparent, where something really, they said or did something that really stuck with you and it's impacted you to this day? Could be with respect to integrity or faith or whatever it may be.
Something does come to my mind, but
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah.
okay.
Go ahead.
I might cheat off you.
Yeah, that's okay. That's all right.
You probably all get to answer this because it's about family memories. So
Yeah, and
Go ahead.
as I talk, I'm sure something will come to your mind. That I remember when I was in third grade, I was in the Kincaid Lower School library, and I was just fooling around looking for books because they made you read back then. They made you go down and check out a book and take it home and read it. So I was fooling around and passing the time, really, and I came across a book. And the book was entitled Tom Tellefsen, Builder and Believer. And I was a little shocked, quite frankly. First, because I didn't know the book existed. But then when I got over that, I kept studying that title. And I was acutely aware in third grade that my family was in the construction business and my great-grandfather had started the company. I knew all that. But I didn't know that his faith was so strong and so much a part of his story and his life that the author of the book was compelled to entitle the book Tom Tellefsen, Builder and Believer. And really, that was kind of about the time when I started to really pay attention to my great-grandfather and his actions. And I remember he always said, "You let your actions speak louder than your words." What I remember about him is he was constantly at the church that he built, not just on Sundays. He was there every single day doing something, fixing something. It was the most special place on earth to him, and that's where he had his cherished relationship with Christ. And he is my image, my first and strongest image of faith and service to others.
yeah, that's powerful. So, memory, Ernie or Matt, you want to share?
I mean, I'll just, say there's, several memories, but when I think about, you think about family business, right? So I started when I was 10 years old, right, in the summer, as 3 of my boys have, working in the mailroom, literally. And I think there was the recognition, and I think seeing from an early age, right, that through family, that there was never a time where I nor any of my, relatives were perceived at any greater level than anybody else in the country and or the company. And in fact, it was inversed from the very beginning, right? The idea of servant leadership, that everybody is here, that we have the opportunity to, serve our associates and our employees, was just ingrained from everything we did. There was such a respect for people that I think was embedded from everything from my grandfather carrying around a stack of names, right, that he would review before he go into a meeting to, remember everybody's, kids and grandkids and where they were at school, and just this appreciation for people of what an opportunity we have, right, and a platform to engage with people in meaningful ways. And I think that, again, back to culture, back to respect, I think really created memory of really what the job's about, right? There's business and school and everything else, but the job at the end of the day, it's people, right? Stuart Moore Sr., people make the world go round. Yeah, the world turns on personalities is what he's known for saying. And I think understanding the appreciation for people, the differences in people, the uniqueness of people, and how to draw the best out of people was, just early on mattered more than anything else that we did.
That's good.
Well, I never knew my grandfather, so I get my stories from friends, but it was really my dad, from a business side of really looking at the culture and really looking at leadership and value statements and all the things. You're 12, 13, 14 years old, and you kind of look at a piece of paper and you're sitting there saying, care, trust, honesty, and you're kind of like, that's whatever. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense at 14 years old. And you fast forward, and I was going on a business trip to Tokyo, and a good friend of mine had handed me a book. And I look at this book, and it was printed in 1912, 1913, and the title of the book was called The House of Mitsui, the Mitsui family as we know it today. And it was one of 5 books printed in English. And it was only a book that they gave to family members of the Mitsui family. And I was very honored that this guy had given this book to me, and I was going to go meet one of the last descendants of the Mitsui family, and I was going to give it to her as a gift. And I'm on the airplane, I'm reading through this, and I get about halfway through this book, and it was the core values of the Mitsui family. The Mitsui family is a 1,000-year-old family that dates back, the history of the family is amazing. Well, I'm looking at these top 10 family values that they have. It looked like we plagiarized them. I mean, it was literally down through, talking about leadership and honesty and care and dignity and all of the components. And I sat there and I looked at this piece of paper and I was like, God, my dad's smart. And he was able to take what his dad and his grandfather had taught him, and he was the first one to be able to put it on paper to make sure that from an educational standpoint, not only did I get it, and my brother and my 2 cousins, but it gave us enough of a kind of a tool to be able to now teach my kids those same dynamics that he learned. And so we have it on paper, and it hit that it was real at that point, and it was pretty unique.
I want to ask a question, and Ernie, I'm gonna start back with you here on this. I want to ask a question now about how while your values haven't changed, your companies have probably changed. And the reason I want to start with you, Ernie, is I noticed that I guess I hadn't realized that the company had started off in the energy business. But now, of course, you do real estate and commercial development and investments. Talk about, is there, you've got a lot of business students here. What could you say about how to either find new opportunities or open new lines of business, or how did that happen? How did that happen?
Well, some of it is market driven, and y'all were not born at this time, but in 1984, the city of Houston had a slight downturn in the energy business, and it was towards the actually later half of '84. And at the time, Dad saw something that he didn't like as far as market, and he sold. He had probably every single one of his friends thought he was an idiot for selling, and they criticized him for it. And ultimately, '85 happened, and most of those people that criticized him and called him, just not a smart business guy, were then asking him for a job. And at the end of the day, he wasn't scared of making a decision, and he wasn't scared of the unknown and making that decision, because he knew that he had enough self-awareness and support behind him to allow him to make that jump. So you fast forward to where we are today. We rebuilt the company back in the energy business, and in 1999 and 2000 we sold again. And it wasn't a top tick as far as oil prices. We could have made a lot more money had we stayed in the business longer, but the problem is the debt component that was getting into the business was getting unruly. You started having private equity getting into the oil and gas business, which had historically not been there. And you had some political stuff that were going on, and so we made a conscious decision to sell again. And we reinvented ourselves into the platform we have today, which is a diversified investment portfolio that we have oil and gas, minerals, real estate. We have some banking that we do as well, and a multitude of other stuff. And it really came into the leadership that we had, having the faith that we can make a decision and not know really what's going to happen that next day. And trust in yourself and not waver in who you are as a person. I think if you would have had any of that wavering going on, we wouldn't have sold. you wouldn't have changed, you wouldn't have reinvented. But having that family backdrop of being able to go to allowed all of us to be able to make those decisions, to be able to kind of reinvent. And we're constantly reinventing ourselves. As far as looking for new business opportunities, it's to be honest with you, it's really trusting the people that are working around you. Most of the great ideas are going to come from that side of life, whether it's molded by me or somebody else, but a lot of the ideas are going to come from other people. And it's that collaboration that's going to happen to foster those types of ideas.
Matt or Tad, you want to respond to that? Because, I mean, Tad, now, your family business has done, construction services. I mean, but I know you've changed. You've had to adapt.
We've
a
changed.
lot. And I want to ask Matt the same question in a minute. But talk about how you've changed, or maybe what made you change.
Well, over 100 years, economies and markets, they ebb and flow, and our company has seen its share of downturns. But obviously, all of our companies have seen some measure of success to have lasted this long. But trust me, it hasn't always been roses. Okay, there has been plenty of things that have brought us to the brink almost, in a phoenix rising out of the ashes a few times. That just happens with business cycles. So we went through a period of years there where we were all over the world doing projects, all kinds of pipeline projects. We had the first lay barge in the Persian Gulf, laying pipelines in the Persian Gulf, and over the years, we just learned that we probably weren't doing it as well as others were, at least perceived. And so I think from a risk management approach, we started, while I've been in the business, to pull back and to only focus on the Houston and the 12 counties surrounding Harris. And we thought that, all of our competitors are doing one thing, and that we were watching a trend of them expanding and growing geographically. It's very common for a contractor to expand and grow geographically. We didn't want to do that. We wanted to be the very best contractor that we could be in one geographic market. And so you might ask, well, how do you grow? How are you going to grow doing that? Well, we've chosen to grow, and we've been successfully growing, both vertically and horizontally within one geographic market. So we have added companies to our portfolio, not by acquisition, but by organic growth and need, both vertical in the supply chain, and then also horizontal in other construction-related industries. And that's, at least for the foreseeable future, that's where we're going to stay.
Matt, I know with the housing market, I mean, the huge credit implosion going back to, well, I guess 2008 was the big credit crunch. Housing markets have been, have been crazy at times.
No, we definitely have just, come through the worst, recession for housing, right, that it kind of spawned in the last downturn in the market, and have had to make significant changes. And, some of that on, Ernie's comment, looking for opportunities. Interestingly enough, the way we sustained the last downturn was not in our core business, but it was actually in handling loan modification and foreclosure review. So, a little bit of pivot to what the necessary needs are in transactions, right? And for several years, right, the only transactions that were taking place were foreclosures. And out of bankruptcy, banks own more property than, the American public did. So that's a little the pivot. Now, fast forward, you actually have today record low number of foreclosures, right, and homes without equity. So that business has really dried up. Our core business, on the other side, we've completely remodeled and revamped. And we've done a lot of restructuring work to centralize a lot of core processes. We're affected by Dodd-Frank, Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, a lot of additional regulation, a lot of scrutiny that constantly requires us to change how we understand, this peace of mind that we provide. For the last 2 days, I've had, kind of 100 of our top management from around the country that have been in for the last couple of days, and we're talking about 2017 and what the next few years looks like. And with all the progress that we've made, the underlying message in the last 2 days has been the continued need to change. And I think, we all look, the pace of change is not slowing down. And as we look at automation and how transactions happen, how people find real estate, how people handle financial transactions, you look at blockchain and fintech and all these words that you're probably studying about, right? This is what we're dealing with on a daily basis. How to reduce the time to close, how to expedite the process, how to get rid of all that paper, how to work with 2,000 county governments that some are still have not automated land record systems. So it's a continuous process to drive the company forward.
All right, I want all of you to answer this last question briefly, and then I want us to take a little time for Q&A. But you got a room full of many business students, undergraduate, graduate students. The job market is really tough and has been for 8 or 10 years, I guess, in the States. Now, but when you hire someone, what could you say to these students? When you hire someone, what do you look for? Now, granted, there are certain competencies, that you have to have given your field of business endeavor. But what are the core things you really look for? How can they best prepare to work for you, 5 years from now, or 3 years from now, or 10 years from now? What do you look for?
Matt, you start.
Matt?
It's I don't want this to go against, we're sitting here at a prestigious university, and I'm going to say something that may not resonate with all the studying that you've been working on. Some of it does.
I'll be prepared to cut your mic off here.
But at a school like this, I will say it does help. It's aptitude and attitude. I think what you'll realize in the marketplace, you're here, you're learning, the basics. What we look for, I think, in our associates is really attitude, right? There is a certain aptitude that people have to understand, but none of you, raise your hand if you've taken a course on title insurance. No one. Right? So, we're in an industry that I can't really come, right, to any university and look for expertise of a particular, actuarial standpoint necessarily. So what we really look for is that aptitude and attitude, right? Do we have people that are willing, that match the culture? We talk a lot about how our hiring matches our core values. As Ernie said, and these cards are out there, we talk about mission, vision, values. Are people lining up? And are they willing to learn? Do they want to learn? And do they have that attitude to drive things forward? The hires, I look back on, the successful or non-successful hires, was not necessarily grade point average, or their major for that point. It was their attitude. And it's very meaningful, I think, especially in today's market, where, yes, it's a tough job market, but finding people that really want to work, that's the challenge.
Tad, take that one on, would you?
Well, that was good advice. I think I'd add something that would be admonishment rather than
You want a pen to write that down?
Huh? Yeah, or maybe I should for my next job interview. That I'm going to get 2 checks when we get to the office. A couple things come to mind. Be yourself. Okay, don't try to be something you're not. Focus. Everyone in this room has strengths and weaknesses. Your strengths are blessings. I guess your weaknesses are blessings too. But focus on your strengths and figure out how you can make those strengths make you the best you can be and be the best at something. Don't worry so much about what you're not good at. Patience. Believe it or not, you are probably going to think that you are ready for that promotion to the new title or the new responsibilities before your employer is. So just be patient on that. Trust me, the patience will pay off. And then adding value, okay? Always think of how you can add value to your employer. Always. Don't just sit back and wait to take orders. Nobody wants or needs an order taker in their organization, especially if you want to go to the next level. Always be thinking of how you can add value.
Good. Ernie, I know you got a thought or two there.
I do. I've got a different organization these guys have.
Yeah.
He's got 6,000 employees. About
Hopefully.
You've got
2,300.
2,500. We got 40. So, so when we make a hire,
Well, we're something's wrong. We're in the wrong business.
well, you're in the people managing business. But when we make a hire, we're almost looking at adding a family member to the organization. And when we have a hire that goes wrong, it has such a disruptive component to our organization that we can't afford to make that mistake. The knowledge transfer across these platforms, we don't have a single person that wears a single hat. When we sit down and interview, the first thing that comes out of my mouth if I'm giving an interview is, are you okay wearing multiple hats? Are you okay with multitasking? Are you okay doing something that is going to push you beyond your comfort zone, push you beyond your knowledge? And depending on kind of that attitude and aptitude that comes back from there is going to give me a great feeling whether I've found somebody that is willing to take that responsibility and run with it. And I'm not a good trainer. I don't have time. No one in our organization really has time to be a trainer. And that's getting into what Tad talked about is seeking somebody to give them orders. So for me, I'm looking for somebody that's got that, that attitude and aptitude and that go-getting willingness, comfortable getting outside of their skin and learning something new. I've got to learn something new every day. Why would somebody that I hire not have to do the same thing I do? And so, I started with a history degree and a finance degree, and somewhere in the middle, I've got oil and gas now on my desk. I didn't know anything about it, but I was able to go outside of my own comfort zone, teach myself something that I didn't know, and working on a project with Tad right now.
I'll tell you, these are, relatively speaking, young businessmen, but they are very mature and experienced. It's really amazing. I could really listen to you for a long time. We have to close, but I want to give the audience an opportunity, and we can take a few minutes to do this. But I think we have a microphone somewhere to move around. But if you'd like to ask one of these men, one of these leaders, a question. Follow up. We want you to be able to do that. Yes, right here. And there's a microphone coming. Go ahead and stand up and bark it out loud until the microphone gets there, and I'll repeat it. Yeah, go ahead.
Yes. How did you manage to propose or change things to the business, like proposing them to your superior, which in this case is like your dad?
So we got time for just one or two of you to respond. But when there's a big change or a better idea, and you know it's a better idea, and Dad or your boss or somebody, your older brother, whatever, how do you handle that?
Well, sometimes it's on the dinner room table.
There you go.
Which is interesting.
Yeah.
When you're in a family business like us, and you don't have a whole lot of people that you're involved in, when you talk about change, you're really talking to the family about change. And in my case, I'm talking to my dad first. It's a little bit weird because I'm the only family member that works in the company. So my dad doesn't work there anymore. My brother doesn't work there. My cousins don't work there. I'm the only one with non-family. So when it comes to change, it's slow to happen. I'll tell you that. Change is hard for a company like ours that has kind of the leader of the family who's now 71 years old. He's been working there since he was 26. So you go to tell him over a dining room table that we're going to do something different. It's going to be met with a lot of resistance. And then you're going to go back, kind of crawling back, in my case, to my wife, Stephanie, and I was like, Dad doesn't like me. And she'll look at me and say, wrong answer. You are in that leadership role that he was once in. You need to go in and make this case. And he'll listen to you as long as you go in there knowing that you've got everything planned and done and all of the questions answered. And in that case, change happens easily. But if you go in not prepared, not with a vision, not with a mission, not with any of the goals associated with that type of change, it's going to be met with no right out of the gate.
Now, I'm somewhat in a different situation, right? So I have family that's involved, and for a large part, seen as advisors, right, that know the business. But I'm also a public company, so I have 9 board members that are hammering me every day that if I don't change, right, I won't have a job, right? So I have a lot of bosses, right? I have lots of shareholders, and I have very vocal board members, and I also have family, and it is a unique position. But I think in any aspect of driving change, right, the opportunity to take risks, to state a position, to understand the pros and cons, and people that have been in business, and whether that's family or the outside board, know you change or die, right? And so I think you definitely find yourself in a position where you may be pushed to change faster than you want to change.
And Matt, you said you have a lot of bosses. We should mention that Malcolm and Becky are right here. There you go. And your parents, and so good to have the Morrises here. Want to add to that?
I'll echo what Ernie said and just add that, yes, you better come prepared with what you want to propose. Don't wing it, because he's going to treat you just like everyone else, and you want him to. But there's also something, there's some complexities dealing with family members. And I have 3 brothers that are partners as well as my dad. And it's tough, and you got to have thick skin, because it's easy to slip into the PC mode, parent-child, okay? I mean, when you're at the office, you're not supposed to be in PC mode, but it happens. He's your dad, I'm the son. And so little family dynamics sneak in, and so you really got to have thick skin and persistence to not give up and get through that.
That's good. That's good. Is there another, yes, I see a hand right there. Let's have time for maybe one more after this one. So, please.
Being now leaders in your industry and being that some of you have daughters, in the transitional phase we are in right now with women progressing in their roles, what would be your advice to young women entering the marketplace who are treated unequally still by their counterparts, and what would be your advice for them to have strong mentality?
Good. Matt's not qualified because he only has 4 boys.
I have 4 boys.
But
I mean,
Do you win because you have more daughters?
I guess I win. I'm going to struggle with this
You
one,
got
but
the girls.
I tell you what, I am really excited because my oldest is 18, and she's starting to figure out college and figure out what she wants to do. And for the first time ever, she has expressed interest in our company and possibly coming to work for our company. And so she's starting to agonize as a senior about what should she major in. Her heart wants to do one thing. She wants to be a teacher. But yet she's having a little difficulty now with this new interest in the company. And so she came to me the other day and said, Dad, if I want to come to the company one day and want to keep my options open, I better not be a teacher then, right? I need to go into business school. I need to go to that track. And I said, no, you don't. Don't worry about that. A little bit like what you said before. Don't worry about that. Get a major in anything that excites you and motivates you. Because our company has grown enough and is complex enough that the skill sets that you are going to develop in school, and then in your first few years at work, because you're not going to work for us for the first few years, you're going to work on someone else's nickel, not ours. The first few years, you're going to, those skills you develop are going to be able to be used at the company if you become a teacher. We have Tellupson University. It is a thriving business unit. It is very important to us. We have a top-level manager running it, and that would be a perfect fit. Don't worry about your major. I guess that's where I would go. Don't worry about your major. Just develop your skills.
That's a great. Ernie, you got anything to add to that, or you want to punt to the next question?
No, I mean, it's, I look at my daughter and I want the absolute best for her. Eventually, she's going to be making her own decisions, and the only thing that I can do, because I have her for a very limited amount of time, and I only have a smaller amount of time where she'll actually listen to me, and then I lose that ability because I become this dad, you're kind of freaking me out guy. But I'm trying to give her a tool chest to be able to make decisions, and part of that tool chest is Christ-centered. The other part of that tool chest is be yourself. Do not change. Do not allow people around you to force you to be somebody you're not. Have integrity and always love your dad. So I instill those four, and then the fifth one I tell her again, always love your dad. And so I think if I can give her that, she's going to be her own person, and she's going to take those talents that she gains as her own person to be able to use those in the world. Whether she's going to be a teacher or whether she's going to be a NASA scientist, I don't know where she's going to ultimately fall, but I hope that I give her the tools to be able to make that choice on her own.
That's good. That's awesome. One more. Is there? Yes? Okay. Thank you.
So, as your companies grow, do you find it difficult to keep instilling your core competencies into your employees? Like, how do you, as society changes, as your companies continue to grow, is it overly difficult to make sure your employees stick to your values and your mission?
Yes.
And so how do you?
Do you want me to?
And how do you reinforce? How do you reinforce them and teach them? Yeah.
That goes back to change, and we've got to be constantly willing to change, and that's the hard part of running businesses is looking up sometimes above the horizon line. And I'll give you an example of change. We were looking at moving new offices, and we were looking at whether people own cars, don't own cars, modes of transportation, everything else. And one of the people we were talking to has a zip car. And I'm like, what's a zip car? As most people, you don't know what a zip car is. It's a shared car service. And at Rice University, they have a parking lot, and you slide your credit card in, you hop in a car, and you drive around. So there's a different mentality that we're constantly having to evolve as a company in the way we communicate, the way that our offices look. 3 months ago, I looked up, and there were 17 stand-up desks that just showed up one day. And so, you get stuck in a rut sometimes, and you look up, and things have changed around you, and it's kind of passed you by. So from a philosophy standpoint, this I'm very good at. This I can instill on a daily basis, but it takes the people around me to help me look up on the horizon line to make sure that I'm staying with the younger generation that's coming up into the company. But good question.
The only thing I would say, I'm actually, I mentioned I've been in this meeting for the last couple of days. We had several breakouts on millennials, how to attract and retain millennials. And one thing that was probably the most encouraging thing that I heard, and we've had a lot of employees for a long time, but what I'd say, culture matters, right? And in the millennial generation, it matters more than it has in the previous generations. And from our standpoint, that's a good thing. And although I don't have girls, I'd answer your question, pay attention to the culture. It's not like that everywhere. People that treat people with respect will treat people with respect. And I think when you look at how do you instill this going forward, the fact that people care more, right? We had this discussion of, it's not just the salary, right? People care a lot more about what that work life looks like. They care more about what the company's involved in and what activities they can have. And so I think that's actually encouraging for companies or entities where culture does matter, right? And I think the one kind of continuous theme you've heard here, people in our industry, right, in our company, know that culture matters. Every survey we take for customers, for associates, why they work at Stewart, Rarely is it because we have the best pay package or the best benefits package. They love the culture. They have an opportunities to improve. They have opportunities to grow, to enhance their career. There's respect regardless of gender or where they are in the company. And so, yes, it's difficult, but that's why, again, back to some of these comments, be true to who you are, especially in a company, right? A company becomes a person, right? And that has an identity, and your reputation, just as you have a personality, and people know you for who you are, the company will have that same aspect. And so make sure that that's ingrained, and you'll start to attract the same people that are currently with the company. And that's the way to perpetuate the issue, right? Is people know and understand who works for that company, and that attracts a certain type of people, and makes it a lot easier, right? When everybody values the same thing.
Thank you. Ted, you got a final thought for us?
That was really well said. And that's exactly right. What I would add is yes, it's difficult, so I'll echo, it's very difficult. We've had an awakening over the last few years, and we have invested a lot of time, dollars, and we've invested our own talent. So we've actually plucked people out of roles where they were producing income on projects and put them in training. So this person I mentioned, the manager of Towson University, that's an example. Another thing, back to culture, we're a family business. And as you grow, it's very hard to maintain that family environment. And we think that's part of our culture and part of a differentiation that we have in the marketplace. We don't want to lose it. So that's a struggle. And so we're doing things, orientation. So we've taken our new employee orientation to a whole nother level than we used to. And we really focus on it and have an event with speakers and presentations on our culture, much more than we used to do.
Would you join me in thanking these panelists for this? Great.